Welcome to the Triad Arts Theater here in Yelm, and tonight we're going to welcome Craig Morin. He's the master builder of precision pyramids. Craig, I'll let you have at it.
My name is Craig Morin, and I have been building pyramids since 2003. And I have some knowledge about pyramids. I would not say that I am an expert on pyramids. I think that there are so many mysteries to pyramids that we have yet to discover, and I hope to be a part of that. And I apologize in advance because I will probably stumble a lot through my notes here. I can read them, that's good. So please bear with me. I have a lot of thoughts swimming in my head about pyramids, and hopefully I'll remember to talk about the ones that are most pertinent in my mind. But if I inevitably forget some stuff, there will be a questions and answers session after, and you can ask any questions that you think I didn't cover. Okay, so I'll start by saying when I was a boy, I used to read the Guinness Book of World Records, and I remember reading one of the entries in the records stating that the oldest living seeds that were sprouted were found in the Great Pyramid, and they were wheat berries, I believe, and they were somewhere around 3,000 years old. Jane, when she recently asked me to do this talk a couple weeks ago, I decided to do more research and make sure I got most of my facts right, and I was checking on that fact, and I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet. And I did find a Mythbusters site that said it was a complete hoax, though. But it made me reflect. I don't honestly know. Like, one thing that came in my mind is, well, did I imagine all that? Did I make that up when I was a kid? And I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good memory, and I'm pretty sure that was in the Guinness Book of World Records. And so then it made me also question, like, well, so then what happened there? Was it a hoax, really, or was it taken out for some, other reason that maybe some powers that be don't want people to know about pyramids? I don't know. But it made me think about sources and information and what we hear. And for me, I didn't question for 1 second when I was a kid that, what the Guinness Book of World Records was saying. It was a reputable source, and there was no reason for me to question it. However, the point that I kind of am trying to make here is that, we hear things all the time from all kinds of things, from conspiracy theories to, mystical and supernatural things, and, maybe some of it's true. I'm sure not all of it's true. And what I want to emphasize here, at least from my experience, what I was really gaining from this is that we really don't know anything, no matter how reputable the source is. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be the Pope or Ramtha, or it could be your father. It doesn't really matter who it is, your school teacher. We're still, unless we have our own experiences, we'll never have the true knowledge and wisdom of what we know. We can only take other people's words for it in that case, in which case we don't truly know. Okay, so enough of that. Another thing that I wanted to kind of, a point that I was trying to make here is, like, so some people believe in anything they hear. And to me, that's what I call blind faith, and that's very dangerous, in my opinion. However, on the other side of that, there is something very powerful with the idea of faith and the power of belief. And I think finding the right level of that is important. And on the other side of the coin, there are skeptics who are blind fanatics in their faith of that nothing exists except for what they can see. I also think that's equally as dangerous as someone who is someone a fanatical follower who believes, who has blind faith. The key, in my opinion, is that there needs to be a balance there. I think one of the keys in life is about balance, and that we can learn from both. The skeptic has a message of discernment, and that's very important. And the believer has the message of faith, which is a very powerful message, and it's an evolving message. So, okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and a little history about me. I came to Yale in 1991, and I heard the pyramids tape shortly thereafter from Ramtha. I've always been kind of interested in pyramids. I did a talk when I was in the second grade on the Great Pyramid and da-da-da-da-da. And then so when I heard the pyramids tape on Ramtha, which some of you may have heard or not, I don't know, I was really I fell in love with pyramids at that point, with what he talked about. And I didn't really know a lot about the supposed mysterious powers of pyramids at that time, and so that opened up my eyes. And he also talked on the tape about he was talking with someone about, he wanted this person to build a pyramid a certain way, and it was without metal, out of wood, completely with no metal, doweled together. When I heard it, I assumed that someone was doing this, and then didn't really think much about it. And then after living in Yelm for a few years, I kind of realized that whoever this person wasn't doing it. So I elected myself, and I said, okay, I'll make pyramids. And didn't know anything about woodworking. This, again, was back in the early 90s, and just kind of learned by trial and error and step by step, mostly error more than trial. But finally kind of figured some things out, and in 2003 I started officially going into business and making pyramids. Let's see. And then as time went on, and so my business kind of was part-time business, kind of gave me some money, but I needed some other jobs on the side to keep going. And then I think it was in 2010, I started going to Evergreen State College to pursue a career in counseling, actually, and because that's a passion of mine. And the next year, David Wilcock came out with his book called The Source Field Investigations, and that totally made my life crazy. It doubled my business. So I was going to school full time. My business became a full-time occupation. My life was crazy, and I am really grateful though for David Wilcock, and because he's definitely my biggest business promoter and cheerleader that I have. So thank you, David. So all right. So getting into pyramids. Pyramids. The word seems to have a hybrid of a Greek and Old English combination. Pyr, or pyro, comes from the word pyro, which means fire in Greek, and then amid in English is in the middle. And so hence the meaning of pyramid is fire in the middle, which according to Ramtha in the pyramids tape, as I understand it, he talks about that the pyramid holds a fire in the middle. It harnesses through the energy that's from the rotating Earth, which I'll go into more details later. It harnesses that energy and then concentrates it in the center, the geometric center of the pyramid, which is about 1/3 up from the base. That's where the King's Chamber is located in the Great Pyramid. There's lots of mysteries to pyramids. And why did all these ancients build these pyramids around the world? And what about all these claims, like supposedly they can sharpen razor blades and mummify pharaohs and dead cats? So are these claims true? Well, hopefully I'll be able to go into a little bit of that and add to that mystery. Okay, so next picture, Jane.
Next picture. Okay, there's this.
So there's pyramids all around the world built from ancients in Mexico. Next picture. This is another one in Mexico. This is actually, I believe this pyramid is larger actually than the Great Pyramid. I think it could be one of the largest in the world. Anyway, there's also pyramids in Guatemala. Next picture. This is Tikal, I believe it's called, and it's one of the steeper pyramids. I believe I remember reading somewhere. I don't remember where, but someone had some sort of device to measure energy of pyramids, and this one was supposedly one of the more powerful ones that they had measured. There's pyramids in Cambodia, and Greece. That one's not a very big picture. That's in Italy. That's in Peru. And then there's also possibly in Indonesia, or no, Bosnia. That's Bosnia. That is a man-made mound, or has associated with that. That's in Indonesia, which is possibly a pyramid. And then also Antarctica, possibly. And then also maybe Mars. And then there's also supposedly underwater pyramids. One has supposedly been found near the Bermuda Triangle off the coast of Cuba, as well as one near the Azores Islands, which is kind of off the coast of Portugal, but in the ocean quite a ways. And these ones, some like amateur seamen found them somewhere, like in the one off the Azores Islands. I guess he supposedly found it on his depth finder or sonar thing or something, and then there's been talk that these have been covered up by government powers and keeping this knowledge from the public. Whether that's true or not, I can't say for sure. However, I do know that there is one country that has in the past covered up their pyramids. This is the supposed Great White Pyramid in China, which was photographed by someone from our aircraft during the World War II or after that time.
Flying tigers.
Yeah, okay, someone knows. Yeah, and this was taken, I think, in the early 40s, and it's supposedly, again, there was lots of rumors about the Great White Pyramid in China being much bigger than the Great Pyramid in Egypt and all that kind of stuff. In any case, after this picture was taken, there was more stories circulated around, but China denied that they had any pyramids at all. And next picture. And then from Google Earth, you can actually see more of China's pyramids. They finally did come out and admit that, I think it was in the early 80s, that they actually did have pyramids. And this one, I think it could be possibly the same one as the one that was in the previous picture, but there's if you go on Google Earth and you know where to look in the right area in central China, there's 30 or 40 of these pyramids that you can find from satellite photos. Anyway, so that's China. So there's all of these places around the world that have all of these pyramids, and it's where do they all come from, and what's the connection there? Was there an underlying race or seed race that did this? Some theories are that people from Atlantis came and built these pyramids, and some theories are people or entities from space came. I can't say for sure, but it's fascinating to think about why are all these pyramids in very different cultures around the world, and what was the reason for taking all this effort to build all these huge monuments? Was it just for decoration? I kind of don't think so. So this one, as everyone knows, is the Great Pyramid, and the most famous one. It has, there's probably more written about the Great Pyramid than any other pyramid. It's estimated that there's 2.3 million blocks of stones in this pyramid, and each block weighs anywhere from 2 tons to 80 tons, which is a lot of weight. That's the bigger ones. That would be 160,000 pounds. Which, how could Egyptians back in those days have the ability to do that? The theory is, they had all these ramps and log wheel things and but here's the thing that makes me really, there's so many things that makes me question the current beliefs, but one of the beliefs about the Great Pyramid is it's a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu, And he reigned for 23 years in Egypt, or at least that's what Egyptologists believe. And if it really was a tomb for Khufu, they would have had to have workers working round the clock, night and day, for 24 hours a day for the entire reign of Khufu, putting on a block, one of these massive blocks of stones, once every 5 minutes to make this pyramid. I don't know. I kind of don't really buy that. I don't know about you, but I don't really quite buy that. So, and then, and people in modern day times have tried to build smaller replicas of this massive structure and have failed miserably, even with the huge cranes that we have, and it's a massive feat. I mean, it's really crazy. So this next picture is a rare photograph of the pyramid. This was taken, I think, again in the early 40s by some Air Force pilot, and he caught the pyramid right at the perfect time when the sun was, I think, setting or about to set, and it caught this slight indentation in the face of the pyramid, and it's such a slight indentation. No one was able to see this, and you can't see it from walking around the pyramid. You can only see it from certain angles and by air, and so this was never known until this person took this picture, and it's another testament to the amazing engineering feats to this pyramid.
Where is this one?
This is the Great Pyramid of Giza.
What was it?
Yeah, this is still a Great Pyramid of Giza. So the indentation is so slight that it's like the amount of engineering feats that would have been done to make this happen is mind-boggling. And other things about the Great Pyramid, like the precision of the blocks fitting together is like sometimes you can't even fit a piece of paper between the blocks. And the orientation, to true north is within about 1/20th of 1 degree. And they didn't have compasses back then. So it's kind of another mystery, in my opinion, how were they able to create something not only so massive, but so precise. I mean, it's with just chisels and hammers, copper chisels, by the way. They didn't have iron. And anyway, there's so many mysteries to it that brings up lots of questions. According to Ramtha, and again, this is the Ramtha CD that I have copies for sale if people want to buy this. I highly recommend this CD. It's what inspired me to do this business, and it's amazing information. And I have some available. You can also get it on Ramtha's website, ramtha.com, or at the Quantum Cafe, or at the Jay-Z Rose Store, and here too. But so Ramtha, as I understand it, he claimed that the blocks were cut with laser light, and then they were raised up through a 0-degree vacuum. They created a vacuum around the block of stone, and created and in that vacuum there was 0 degrees Kelvin, as I understand it, which is absolute zero. And in doing that, it created anti-gravity, and then through either thought or just simply light, was able to be used as a propellant to move these blocks into place. He also talked about that he claimed that there was a ship that was perched at the apex of where they planned this pyramid to be built into, and it shot out laser lights from that apex, and so that was the template for them to move all the blocks into place for this pyramid. And then it supposedly, when it was finished, it was sheathed in turquoise, which has an extremely smooth finish, and it had a golden capstone on it, and it supposedly glowed, had a blue luminescence to it, which I've heard actually some people can still see that today under certain conditions. And then also, he also talked about that there are supposedly tunnels that connect not only the Great Pyramid to other pyramids of the world, but then the tunnels supposedly also go into inner Earth. So I would love to fall into one of those tunnels one day. Okay, and then next picture, a little bit later time period, that's another picture, a satellite picture of, again, indentation on the Great Pyramid. again, it's so slight that you cannot see this if you're walking around the pyramid, or even if you were to be on one side looking across the side. It's incredible, the engineering feat, just to make something that precise. Okay, next picture. So later on, after the Great Pyramids were built in Egypt, south of Egypt in Nubia, which is now current day Sudan, they built these smaller sized pyramids that have the steeper angle, similar to the pyramid that I've built here. That again, I have integrated. Actually, next picture. So I've integrated the 5-pointed star into this pyramid, which has also phi in this in the pentagram, which is 1.618, and I think probably a lot of you have heard about phi as being the golden mean ratio, and is present in a lot of different things in nature, including seashells and sunflower patterns and the seed head, and supposedly leaf patterns, and supposedly even the human body. So phi is 1.618, which is the long side of the top of these longer triangles on the pentagram, and then the shorter side would be 1. So it has phi integrated into the pyramid. So that's what I've created here, which is a 72-degree slope angle, same as that triangle, and very similar to the slope angles of the pyramids that were built in Nubia, which were somewhere around 70, I think, to 72 degrees. And it was interesting. So Nubia, Egypt and Nubia were two separate cultures that clashed quite a bit in ancient times. And sometimes Nubia invaded Egypt and took large sections of Egypt, and then Egypt would invade back and take large sections of Nubia. So there was a somewhat of an intermixing of cultures there. And so it's interesting that later on, after these greater pyramids in Egypt were built, they started to build these smaller but steeper pyramids in Nubia. And there are actually more pyramids in Nubia than there are in Egypt. There's, I believe, 255 in Nubia. And I think in the 90s in Egypt, but I'm not positive of that. So let's see. So yeah, there's lots of mysteries with pyramids, and like, why did the ancients build these pyramids, and what's the purpose behind them? And then, the stories with all the claims of pyramid power, what is true about that, and what can they do? So in 1949, a guy by the name of Karel Durbal, he's Czechoslovakian, he applied for a patent in Czechoslovakia for sharpening razor blades. And when I heard about this, I was like, really? How in the world can a pyramid sharpen a razor blade? And his patent is a cardboard pyramid about this size or thereabouts, and he in the patent he specifies certain things in order for this to work. So he says that it doesn't have to be cardboard, but it has to be a non-metallic material, he stated. And then the razor blade is put on a little stand that makes it 1/3 up from the base of the pyramid, which is where the king's chamber is, the center of the pyramid is. And then that blade also has to be pointing in line. The long part of the blade has to be pointing with the magnetic field of the Earth, the magnetic north to south alignment. The pyramid itself also had to be aligned, and it's not clear to me from reading the material whether he required it to be aligned to magnetic north or true north, but he said it had to be aligned to one of those. He also said that it didn't have to be. He was using the angles of the Great Pyramid, and according to him, that was the most effective angles. But he also said that it didn't have to be those angles; that other angles, including steeper angles, did work as well. Let's see. So, in Czechoslovakia, at least back in those days, the process was more involved to get a patent. Normally, it took 2 to 3 years, I guess, from what I've read. But in this case, it was a 10-year process, and he had to supposedly prove how, or explain how this works. It's not enough just to demonstrate and say and have it shown that it actually does work. He had to try to explain it, which he spent 10 years trying to explain. And in the end, he ended up giving the head patent approval guy, inspector, one of his pyramids, and he started shaving with it, and then he was convinced, and that was it, and they gave him the patent. So the thing does apparently work, and so my let's see. Okay, some other things that he specified also in his patent to make it work is the pyramid couldn't be too close to a wall, which I found interesting, and also not near electrical devices. And then the, let's see here. So some things I might say about, metal has a crystalline structure to it, and my understanding is that the pyramid energy is somehow strengthening the bonds in that crystalline structure, and then that's making it so that someone can use the razor blade a lot longer. He claimed, he claimed he did this for like 20 years, shaving with using this device, and he claimed that his average number of uses was 105 shaves per razor blade, and I think from what I read, it was under 10 when he wasn't using it, so that's quite an improvement. And let's see here. But one thing that he was specific about was it's not a sharpener. It doesn't sharpen dull. It's not supposed to sharpen dull razor blades. It's supposed to maintain the edge of a sharp blade. He called it a regenerator, not a sharpener. And what he said was it will help. So how he explained it was like when you shave, the fine edge of the metal, and it had to be high quality steel, he said, the fine edge would have an elastic, would be bent on a microscopic level. It would be bent a little bit elastically. So it increased the elastic ability for the elasticness of the blade to go back to its normal edge, sharp edge, and so how it would work is you'd shave and then you'd put it back in the pyramid for the day, and he claimed that increased the elasticity of regenerative quality of it bending back into shape within 24 hours versus when it wasn't in the pyramid, it would take from 15 to 30 days to regenerate itself. So yeah, interesting stuff. And then, the next question is, so what else can pyramid power do besides sharpen razor blades and mummify dead cats and pharaohs? So there's lots of experiments that seem to show that plants and sprouts and seeds grow much quicker inside a pyramid than outside a pyramid. It can preserve food. There's experiments I've read where people will take hamburger meat and in the pyramid and outside the pyramid and have dramatic results where the hamburger meat inside the pyramid will be preserved and dry like jerky, whereas the beef outside is like putrefied after a few days. And another thing that I found a common thread in the successful experiments was that how much you put in. Like this one particular experimenter was using only a small amount of, not a large pyramid. I think he was using, he called it Bristol board, which I think is a form of cardboard, but like more paper. And he was using maybe this size pyramid here, and but he would only use like a teaspoon of meat in the pyramid and a teaspoon outside the pyramid. And my understanding is that the size of the pyramid can have an effect on how powerful it is, and a smaller size pyramid isn't going to be necessarily so powerful to be able to preserve like a pound of meat in there. So I found that an interesting and significant point. I mean, there's a lot of things that with pyramid experiments that my understanding is can go wrong. one is how you align the pyramid. If it's not aligned, my understanding is it's not nearly as effective. There was a story in the book Pyramid Power by Max Toth about someone who bought one of his cardboard pyramids and was doing experiments, and she tried honey, and the honey would start to mummify. It would start to go from a liquid phase to like gum, and the whole process took like 7 weeks for her pyramid to do the quantity of honey, which is not a lot, but to mummify it. But what she found during that process was, if at one point the pyramid got bumped out of alignment to true north, and the honey re-liquefied, and then when she moved the pyramid back to true north, it started again the process of mummifying again and becoming rubbery again. And then and she did it. She tried that, like, I think it was 3 different times during that process. She moved it back out of true north, and it went back to liquid state, and moved it back in, and it started to mummify again. She did that 3 times, and then after 7 weeks, I guess it had completely hardened or mummified, and then she took it out of the pyramid and had it actually as a mantelpiece on her table, if you will. And honey, I don't know if any of you know, honey is very hydrophilic, I think is the right word. It likes water. It will absorb water from the air. So it's pretty unusual for honey to stay in a rubbery form exposed to air. It will eventually absorb water, and it can crystallize too, but generally honey is usually sealed up, so then that's usually when it crystallizes. So anyway, that same person also talked about, she did experiments where she put pyramids like this under a chair, and people were experiencing very unusual, strange bodily desires unexpectedly from that. Let's see. There's other experiments that I read about. Pyramids have been shown to inhibit the growth of bacteria. And the pyramids, what I read about there, again, from the Pyramid Power book by Max Toth, another one by Patrick Flanagan. There was a book he did, also called Pyramid Power, but the one that I'm thinking of is actually his sequel, Pyramid Power 2, where he did some really scientific experiments with controls and the experimental samples and in controlled environments. And he published all the stats to all of his experiments, and a lot of them were very impressive. Again, like things like bacteria growth were greatly reduced. What else did he do, if I can remember offhand? Meat was, the putrefaction of meat was ridiculous outside the pyramid compared to inside the pyramid. Things like that. I mean, another thing I've read that I haven't tried yet, which I'm going to have to try, is pyramids are supposedly known to remove tarnish off of like silver coins. Probably other metals, I would guess, too, if it does silver. But supposedly if a silver coin is put inside a pyramid for a period of time, then you can just lightly wipe it afterwards and all the tarnish will come off of it. That sounds interesting. It's known to mummify flowers. It does amazing jobs with roses. Tobacco supposedly enhances the flavor of tobacco. If it's a really strong, bitter tobacco, it'll sweeten it up. Wine will enhance the flavor of wines. And then, of course, there's... and then also another one, an interesting one, lotto tickets. In the Pyramid Power book, supposedly people have had amazing results by putting lottery tickets inside their pyramids. Did you try it? That's going to be an experiment I'm going to do very soon. And then, of course, there's pyramid water, water that's been energized by pyramids. Actually, I'm going to take a step back related to water. So one of the things that pyramids are known to do is dehydrate, obviously. And there have been experiments with open dishes of water that have shown more dehydration in the evaporation of the water compared to the controls. So I found that very interesting. And then with pyramid water, which I assume would be sealed up, has also had lots of amazing results from healing wounds faster to, if any of you were here at David Wilcock's talk last night on Gaiam TV, he went into all kinds of things that pyramid water could do. And with the experiments that are going on in Russia, or have been going on in Russia, with the huge pyramids that have been built there. One is, I think, 144 feet high. And I won't go into those details. I highly recommend you, if you're interested in that, knowing more, that you check out his recent web TV programs about the pyramids, and he really goes into detail about the Russian pyramids and what the experimenters there have accomplished, including another one which I found really fascinating, which I heard about actually already, was about the supercooled water. Last night he showed on his program, he showed a small video clip of one of the pyramid researchers inside, I think this pyramid's in Siberia, and he was inside this large pyramid with a bottle of water, and it was negative 38 degrees Celsius in the pyramid, which is almost equivalent to the same as negative 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Really damn cold. And this bottle of water was still liquid. When I first saw that video quite a while ago, I was amazed by that, and I did more research, and I found out actually that water, pure water, doesn't actually freeze at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It freezes somewhere around negative 38 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius. And so when I first saw that, I was like, is that kind of a hoax thing? I didn't know. But then as David Wilcock actually said on the show that they did actually have control samples outside the pyramid that were frozen. So that was impressive to me. And how that works, as I understand it anyways, with water, in order to freeze at a temperature above negative 38 degrees Fahrenheit, it has to have a seed to start the crystallization process. And that seed could be anything from a particle of dust to getting what he did with bottled water in the pyramid is he took the water, negative 38 degrees Celsius, and he gave a solid wrap on the side of the plastic water bottle. And that created a little bit of air bubbles in the water, and then that started a whole chain reaction that caused the whole thing to freeze in a matter of seconds. It was amazing to watch. And so water needs a seed to start the crystallization process if it's above, as I understand it, if it's above negative 38 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius. And almost all water in nature is not going to be pure. It's going to have particles of dust and air and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, very fascinating to me that whole process. That somehow the pyramid seems to be assisting in purifying the water. And David Wilcock also talked about in his video how these large pyramids in Russia, they did some experiments with rocks on the floor, and they noticed at times that concentric rings would form on some of these rose granite rocks, I believe they were, or some sort of granite rocks. And David's understanding or theory of that was that somehow the pyramid was pulling all of the impurities out of the rocks and just having this dropping out of them. And whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but that would seem to match up with the idea of the supercooled water, that if it's actually doing that, then it would probably pull out all the impurities in the water as well, which has been claimed in the talk that he gave too, how it can purify things and as well as take out toxic effects of chemicals in water, as well as just pure toxic chemicals. But I'm not going to go too much more into that because it's an incredible talk, and highly recommend you hear it for yourself. Okay. So, of other things that have been claimed with pyramid power, increased telepathy, out-of-body experiences. Robert Monroe, maybe some of you have heard of Robert Monroe. He's written quite a few books on his out-of-body experiences. He started having them, I think, when he was in his early 20s, and he has incredible journeys with out-of-body experiences, and he. In his book, Far Journeys, he talked about that he actually had a pyramid above his room in his attic, or no, wait, I think his roof might have been a perfect pyramid shape. And he was attributing that maybe that was one of the causes that triggered him to start having these out-of-body experiences. Another thing, a book that I've read that I think is an amazing description of what the Great Pyramid might have been used for back in the day. It was a book called Initiation by Elizabeth Hike. This book is about her supposedly remembering her past life as an Egyptian queen way back when, and she asked to be initiated in the Great Pyramid, and she was refused actually by the high priest several times. On the third time that she requested it, he granted her the initiation, and she wasn't ready for it. She, as I understand anyway, she went in there and so the initiation, as I understand it, is basically going to destroy any self-ego that you have. And, she was placed in the sarcophagus of in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, and then she went into, as I understand it, she went into like this. It's been a while since I've read the book, so I'm probably not going to get it completely right. But she had these parallel life experiences, and she might have been in the sarcophagus for an hour, I don't know, but she lived lifetimes in this initiation in the Great Pyramid, and they weren't necessarily easy lifetimes for her. And from what I remember, so she was initiating the pyramid, and she survived the ordeal, I think, okay, but she still wasn't actually completely egoless from that, and that was a dangerous thing. She opened up higher energy centers in her body and brain, but she ended up having, because she hadn't owned all of life's experiences, she ended up having an energetic crash when she ended up taking on a lover, and it totally blew out her electrical circuits in her body, and then she ended up having to, according to the book, she ended up being like almost like comatose for like 2,000 years in an Egyptian tomb, but still aware while in that body. And then time went on, and then she was able to release, I think, her connection to that body, and then have more life reincarnations, and then she gradually was able to get back up to a level where she was able to remember all that happened to her in this lifetime, which was, I think she's not here on this plane anymore in that body, but it was, she remembered all that happened in this lifetime, maybe back in the 50s, I think. Okay, so that's my understanding with what the Great Pyramid was all about. It was like an initiation chamber, and for people who were truly ready to have their ego completely removed and to, embrace their higher aspects of themselves, that was the place to go. So for my own experiences, I built, way back when, I built myself a larger pyramid that was like 13 and a half feet wide and about 8 feet tall, and I didn't have a place inside to put it, so it was outside. And the pyramids that I build are no metal whatsoever. They're all doweled together. And I put plastic sheeting on the top half of it to protect myself against the weather, and mosquito netting on the bottom part. And I slept and focused and meditated in it for 2 or 3 years, and it was like my favorite place to be. I needed less sleep. Sometimes it seemed like 1 to 2 hours less sleep every night, and I had great sleep. When I would focus and meditate in there, I was more centered, calmer, at peace. I didn't have like an urge to like get up and go do things or be out in the outside world. It was just more like just right into myself. And, I also noticed that I got a lot of really amazing insights while I was in my pyramid. just intuitive insights, issues, like if I had an issue going on in my life or a problem, and I had contemplated on it in there, often I'd get an answer just out of the blue that's like, wow, that's what I needed and it helped me to resolve so many things in there. Ramtha talks about the pyramid as an amplifier, where it's a tool to amplify. It amplifies whatever is going on for you in your thoughts. So if you go in a pyramid, I highly recommend that you go in with intention, and you're not just have random thoughts, and because it could amplify those thoughts, whatever you're focusing on. The other thing I would say about my experiences with my own pyramid, I didn't mention, after 2 or 3 years, again, because they were doweled together, not like screwed or nailed down, there was a windstorm that blew the pyramid apart while I was sleeping in it. Actually, I was sitting up in it at that point, and I was aware the storm was coming. I saw the wind front coming over the trees far away, and I was just kind of too tired. I didn't feel like getting up. And I just watched it come, and it blew the whole pyramid while I was in it, and happened that just so much that where the entrance is and the mosquito netting blew right through where I was, and it didn't even touch me. It was pretty amazing. And I haven't had the time yet to set it up again, but I do intend to. And then my other experience with pyramids is I did go to Egypt in 2003, I think it was, and went into the Great Pyramid, and oh my God, So one thing I will say about pyramids, at least my experience with my pyramids, is there's a subtleness to the pyramids that is hard to describe and explain. I don't have the same opinion about that one. That one is not so subtle. But the one in the Giza dimensions that I was sleeping in had a subtleness to it that was hard to put in words about it. But there was something so magical about it, and I just felt, I can't explain it, but it was just like there's something so right about being in that pyramid, and that's the best I can say. However, with the Great Pyramid, when I was at the Great Pyramid, there was nothing subtle about that pyramid. When I went in there, holy crap, that energy in there to me felt so powerful. And I don't claim to be someone who is really sensitive to energies, by the way, but in that pyramid, holy crap, the energy in there to me was so palpable. I feel like I could almost grab it. It was just, anyway, it was pretty amazing. And I did get to lay down in the sarcophagus. I didn't have any future or past life experiences that I remember, but it's still pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to go shift gears, and I'm going to show some experiments that one of my customers sent me pictures of. So Jane, if you could do the next picture. So this customer bought one of my corners kits, which is the 5 corner pieces that have holes drilled in them, and she bought the dowel rods from like Home Depot and cut them to the right length and then set that up. So she had three experiments going on. The wooden pyramid, my pyramid. She had a copper pyramid, and next picture. And then she had a control outside both pyramids, and she set up plastic trash bins upside down and had a brick on top of the trash bin, and that was set to about where the king's chamber level was. And then she did do the next picture. I think the first experiment she did, was with popcorn sprouting popcorn. And so this is out at day 6. I don't know how well you can see it. The one in the wooden pyramid, my pyramid, was the top one, and the one on the metal pyramid was the one on the left, and then the control was on the right. You can see the one on the top in the wooden pyramid seems to have longer sprouts than the other ones, and then the one that was out of the pyramids is very clearly different from the other two. Next picture. And so this is day 8, and you can see again the one in the wooden pyramid had a lot bigger sprouts. Next picture. And then, okay, so that was that experiment. And then she did experiments with roses. And then this one, oh, and I didn't explain enough. So the popcorn seeds were on the trash bin with the brick, and they were in a glass container with some paper towel, moistened paper towel, and then it was it was sealed with a plastic lid on top for that experiment. For this one, she did the roses, same setup, but instead of putting a plastic cap on the container, she had a glass lid, so it wasn't exactly a hermetic seal. So this is the beginning of the experiment before they go in the pyramids and the control spot. Next picture. I think this is like day 4. The controls on the right, you can already see it's really starting to decay. I don't see a too noticeable difference between the 2 pyramid roses. Okay, next picture. On day 8, the control is on the right. The one in the metal pyramid is on the bottom, and then the one in the wooden pyramid is up top. Next picture. And this is a side view. The control's on the right, the metal one's in the middle, and the one in the wooden pyramid is on the left. This is day 10. The ones on the bottom, including the metal pyramid, aren't looking so hot. Next picture. And this is a side view at day 10 of the one on the right, a mushy mass that's about ready to crawl away. The one in the middle is the metal pyramid, and the one on the left is the wooden pyramid. Let's see. Okay, so then the next experiments that I'm going to talk about were on the TV show called Mythbusters. I don't know if any of you have seen this episode, but they declared that they busted pyramid power. So the experiment was they built 4 pyramids out of wood, and they were made out of dowels, and they were probably like, I want to say 2 or 3 feet at the base, and they were in the Giza dimensions. They aligned them to magnetic north, which is not what is recommended by most pyramid people who seem to research pyramids. Say they should be aligned to true north, like the Great Pyramid. These were aligned. The pyramids were aligned to magnetic north, and then they used a cut 2x4 as a stand that was the right length to get it to the king's chamber level with whatever they were experimenting with. And they experimented with 4 different things. They experimented with milk. They had like a half a cup or a cup of, I think it was about a half cup, if I were to guess, of milk outside one of the pyramids, and half a cup inside one of the pyramids. They had a rose that they cut in half. One half was in one of the pyramids, the other half was outside. They took a razor blade and they broke this razor blade in half. No, first they took the razor blade and they tried to dull it up by rubbing it against some hard surface. And then they broke the razor blade in half and put one actually in a copper pyramid that they had bought, a smaller copper pyramid, and then one half of the razor blade was outside the pyramid. And then the final 4th experiment they did was with an apple. They took an apple, they cut it in half with a chop saw, and then put one half in one of the wooden dowel pyramids, and the other half outside. And again, these are all on blocks of, they're either 2x4s or 2x6s, I'm not sure which, but they're on blocks of wood that are at the right height for the king's chamber level. So the milk, so they did this for 16 days. And at the end of the 16 days, they looked at it all, and they looked at the milk, and the one outside, both of them seemed to be pretty raunchy, actually. The one outside the pyramid definitely had milk maggots crawling around in it. The one inside the pyramid supposedly did, according to them as well. They didn't show real clear pictures of each, and it looked to me like the one inside the pyramid was not as raunchy or buggy as the other one. But from that, they declared it busted. And my comment on that particular experiment was that, based again on what I was saying about pyramid energy and how big the pyramid is, and then also there's other factors involved. I mean, not only was it aligned to magnetic north, but also the amount of liquid that was involved in trying to dehydrate this material was probably too much for that size pyramid to handle. So that's my best guess what happened there, why it didn't produce amazing results. So they declared it busted. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Paul. By the way, I'm going to do a little plug for Paul right now. That pyramid, that stone pyramid right there, that's Paul's great work, and he sells stone pyramids through my website. That he has like a $100,000 machine that he got, I think, from Italy or something like that, and wood pyramids work, but these stone pyramids, he can make them so precise that they are undoubtedly way more effective than the wooden one, and also that's what the Great Pyramid is made out of. There's probably a reason for that. So, anyways, amazing work that he does, and you can order his pyramids on my website, precisionpyramids.com. If no one figured that out yet, if I didn't mention that.
Craig, there's actually a lighting in this.
What is the material in that?
Is it granite? Granite and onyx, is it? Paul?
It's granite, black granite, and white onyx.
Yeah. Yeah, Paul does amazing work. Turn off the light for a moment,
Jane,
you can
turn
see.
the light on? Could you, no, the spotlight.
The spotlight. Turn the spotlight off. There you go.
Kind of what I would imagine the Great Pyramid might have looked like when it was glowing, but with different colors. Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Paul. All right, where was I? Talking about the milk and, explaining that. So the next experiment that they did was the cut rose, and that one they also declared busted. And that one, they both halves of the rose in the pyramid and outside the pyramid actually dried out and preserved darn well with all of its color intact and everything. And that's another example where I would say for that experiment, they showed at one point, like for a brief second, a humidistat in their workshop, and it was at 20% humidity, which is so freaking dry. We don't get to 20% humidity here in Washington State, I can tell you that. But that's really dry. So it doesn't surprise me that actually both halves of the rose would have dried out before any molding would have happened. I believe my pyramid customer who did these rose experiments, not only did she have them covered so they weren't able to dry as easily, but I think she was in, I want to say Wisconsin, which is much wetter than wherever the heck the Mythbusters did their experiment. So that's, even though they declared it busted, my comment is, again, that was an experimental, there was conditions going on in that experiment that probably wasn't going to show pyramid power for what it can do. Now, the third experiment was the razor blade. And having talked about the razor blade patent by the Czechoslovakian Karl der Ball, he had a lot of specifications that they didn't follow quite right. They were using a copper pyramid, and der Ball also said, it's not meant to sharpen a razor blade. It's meant to keep it regenerated and keep it sharp if it's sharp when it starts. And they took the razor blade and again made it dull by scratching it on a hard surface. However, during this experiment, the razor blade experiment is not an experiment I intend to do anytime soon because, well, I don't really like to shave, so it's not going to really work for me. But they had access, and it can be kind of a hard one to verify because it's could be more subjective of an experiment. However, in this program with the razor blade experiment, they had access to something that was really wonderful. They took after the 16 days, they took the two halves of the razor blade and they took it to a person who had an electron microscope. And they were able to look at the edge of these two razor blades, halves of the razor blades, really up close. So Jane, next picture. They declared this busted, by the way. And this is the picture of the razor blade in the control outside the pyramid. Now, before I go on to the next picture, look at it closely. So this is like really magnified, and this is supposed to be the edge of the blade, believe it or not. And it's all gouged and rough, and it's probably because they were scraping it like the edge of the blade like this on a rough, rocky surface, and it created all those grooves. So this is the control blade, and then the one in the pyramid, next picture, this is the pyramid blade. Now this was the same blade that was broken in half, so they did the exact same, whatever they did to the blade beforehand. I don't know if you guys, they said they couldn't see any difference. For me, I think there's a significant difference. Next slide. Then they show the two side by side. So the control's on the left, you can see all the grooves, and then the pyramid one is on the right. To me, the one on the right looks a lot, it's still rough. And like DeBall said, it's not meant to sharpen them. I mean, it supposedly can take 40 days to maybe sharpen a razor blade if it hasn't been severely damaged. But that looks pretty different to me. The one on the right, to me anyway, looks a lot smoother than the one on the left. But they didn't see any difference, so they declared it busted. Okay. So then the third experiment was the apple that they chopped in half. And again, 16 days later, they went and checked on the apple, and this is what the one half of the apple looked like outside the pyramid. No, inside the pyramid. Sorry. So you can see the kind of the wooden dowels of the pyramid around the apple there. It's a close-up shot. So you can see there, the apple, it has a little bit of oxidation going on. It's possible there might be some mold on there. I didn't hear them say that there was mold on there, but there might be little bits, I'm not sure. But so that's what the one half of the apple looked like inside the pyramid for 16 days. Now try to remember that in your mind. Mm-hmm. Now the next picture is the one outside the pyramid.
Oh.
Even they could not say that there was something unexplainable going on in this. Yeah, they had to admit that. And then one of the assistants working on the show that was involved in this said on the show, "I'm so bummed this oogie boogie stuff is actually working." Well, so if you're following proper scientific protocol in an experiment, and you come across something that happened in an experiment that you can't explain, that there's an anomaly going on, well, what you're supposed to do, at least as I understand it, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to try to figure out think of any unknown variables that could be affecting the experiment, and to try to eliminate those variables, and then to repeat the experiment. So what they concluded from this experiment, do you want to go back to the last picture? Are you able to do that, Jane?
Backwards?
If that's not, yeah, it's just on the left side there. So again, there's the one in the pyramid, and then go back to the other one. And then there's the one outside the pyramid. Pretty significant difference. Yeah. So their explanation to that was, well, the saw blade that cut the apple in half was dirty. And there must have been more bacteria on one side of the blade than the other that caused the apple to do what it did. Okay, maybe. I mean, it's anything's possible. I concede that anything's possible, so maybe. So the proper scientific protocol would be to try to eliminate that third variable, or that unknown variable, by repeating the experiment and eliminating that aspect. So what should have they done? They should have repeated it, cut the apple in half with a sterilized knife. Did they do that? No. What did they do? And they did decide to repeat an experiment, but instead they took whole apples and they sterilized the hell out of the outside of the apple with bleach and then ultraviolet radiation. And then they put a whole apple inside the pyramid, a whole apple outside the pyramid, and then they even got even ambitious and made a box cube frame and put one in a cube frame. So, and then they let those apples sit for 4 months, and then after 4 months they checked them out, cut them open, and The one in the cube looked really bad. The one in the control outside the pyramid had definite signs of degrading, but it wasn't nearly as bad. And then the one in the pyramid had about the same signs of degrading as the one outside the pyramid. So based on that, they declared pyramid power busted. But they didn't even do the proper scientific protocol of repeating the experiment. It was a completely different experiment where we're talking about whole apples that are hermetically sealed, so they have they have a vapor barrier going on with protecting the flesh against the atmosphere. Whereas the one where they chop the apple in half is a completely different experiment where it's exposed to the atmosphere and there's more opportunity for the apple to start to dehydrate, which is an important aspect to what pyramid energy does. So they didn't even repeat the experiment properly, and based on the results that they had, I'm going to declare Mythbusters, you're busted.
Yeah.
All right, so how does this oogie boogie stuff work anyway? There's different theories about pyramid power and how it might work. It could act as an antenna that's picking up cosmic radiation or some sort of radiation, which seems feasible to me. I mean, I'm still baffled by the fact that you can have a little cell phone device that has some tiny little antenna, and you pick up all these crazy information from seemingly invisible sources. So to me, why couldn't that work with an antenna shaped like a pyramid that's picking up invisible sources from something that we have yet to really effectively measure? Another theory is, these could be related too, but as I understand it, another theory is the idea of, which Wilcock has talked about, that there's this ether flowing all around us, and it's also called the quantum vacuum, and it has flow to it, and that the pyramid and other geometrical shapes can cause eddies or disturbances in that flow, which create these so-called torsion fields that then cause the effects that the pyramids can create. I can't really say for sure. I don't really know. I'm pretty convinced that there is something to this stuff, though. Ramtha, in the pyramid CD, what he talks about, as I understand it, he says that that there are north-south energies that are going through the planet, and these north-south energies are what keeps the Earth rotating in a specific direction as it rotates around the sun at a 23.5 degree tilt on its axis in relation to the sun. Similar to like a top. You spin a top on the floor, and it does this kind of thing where it wobbles as it keeps a certain angle. According to what I understand that Ramtha talks about, there are certain energies in play that keep that top at that certain angle. So, and Ramtha also talks about that centrifugal force of the rotation of the Earth is actually a higher level of energy above electricity, and that there's no magnetic aspect to this higher level of energy that is probably more subtle and harder to measure. So he also talked about that metal can interfere with the energy of the pyramid, and it can absorb it, and that's why he has specifically said that it should not have any metal on it in the pyramid whatsoever. He did say that you could have like a copper ring at the king's chamber level that could help to act as a conduit for the energy to keep it moving, I think is what he said. But that was not clear to me, so I'm not. I highly recommend you, if you have interest in this area, to buy the CD and to listen to it yourself so you can hear for yourself what is said there. Much better than I'd be able to say. He also recommended that the pyramid be aligned to true north, which a lot of people have recommended it. It makes sense. Oh, and also people like David Wilcock in his studies has also concluded that pyramids should not have any metal, and that it will interfere with the energy. So there's lots of correlations here. And again, alignment to true north makes sense to me, and also the metal without metal makes sense to me too, because that's what the ancient pyramids, that's, at least like the Great Pyramid, that was aligned to true north. There was probably a reason for that. And they were not made of metals. They were made of rock and wood. And so that makes sense to me. Ramtha also talked about that on the equinox is the time of the year when the pyramid is actually the most powerful. And I'm not clear the reason behind that, but I think it has to do something with not only the tilt of the axis on the rotation of the Earth, but also how it's aligning somehow with the sun. I'm not clear on that though. He also talked about an ideal size pyramid. Someone asked him about that, and he recommended making a pyramid 1 1/3 times your height. So for example, if you were exactly 6 feet tall, then an ideal size pyramid would be 8 feet high. And he didn't say why, but I thought about that for a while, and my conclusion is the reason for that is when you're in a pyramid to that height, to your size, if you're sitting in it, then your head will be right where the level of the king's chamber is, which is the most powerful spot in the pyramid. So that's cool. That made sense to me. And he also said that it doesn't need walls to be effective. It can be just a frame, like that one is. And again, that sometimes is mystifying. Like, how can it do that without any walls, or how could it harness the energy? And it brings to mind. I don't know if any of you have seen. I think these are more older types of satellite dishes, but there's satellite dishes that have like a screen that makes up the concave face of the satellite dish that you can see through, and yet somehow these dishes can still reflect light waves back to a focal point in the middle of the satellite dish, and yet it's not a mirror, it's a screen that you can see right through. So I don't understand how that works, but if that works, then why wouldn't a frame work? So, let's see. The other thing I thought was really powerful that Ramtha's talked about with pyramids is he talked about how, he talked about, again, pyramid, it's the word stands for the fire within, fire in the middle. And he said that, and like people have also said, oh, actually, Jane, will you shoot the next picture? Sorry. So he talked about that the energy concentrates in the center, and it actually is a representation of our light body, and it's a symbol of the Christ that's within us. That's the potential within all of us. Anyway, I thought that was really cool. This is a picture of as I understand it, it's a Kirlian photograph that has a Tesla coil in the center of the pyramid. It's a plexiglass pyramid, and I forget what is the capstone made out of, but this was taken back in 1979 by Dr. D.J. Nelson, and I think he was a professor at some university, and I can't remember what, but amazing photograph. And for those who don't know what Kirlian photography is, it supposedly can see people's auras, and you electrify the material at a very high voltage, and then this particular camera can pick up this aura around it. So this was the aura that was picked up in this pyramid, which is pretty freaking unusual, even in Kirlian photography. I don't know of any Kirlian photographs that have ever picked up a spiraling helix like that has. Yeah, it looks like a DNA strand. And that's another aspect of pyramids that supposedly there is a spiraling energy that goes up out of the apex of the pyramid, as well as I've heard on the four corners as well, but not as strong. And that's my understanding of what the supposed copper or gold capstone on the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, was for. It was supposedly meant to reflect back down the spiraling energy back to the king's chamber. Okay, let's see. So kind of to finish up here with my own thoughts, just a couple thoughts on the pyramids. I read was actually Patrick Flanagan, who's done a lot of research on pyramids that I mentioned in his book Pyramid Power. He described pyramid energy as, or the space that's inside the chamber of a pyramid, reducing entropy, which entropy is chaos, basically. It's randomness in the universe and the expansion of heat as the universe expands, whereas life force is anti-entropic, I guess it's called, where it's organizational and it takes chaos and can organize things. And that seems like, to me, a really good definition of what the pyramid, energy inside a pyramid is doing. It's entropic, it's creating more organization. It's one of the most powerful uses it can be used for is using our mind to harness its power. So, and the mind is one of the most, if not the most entropic thing in the entire universe. And it preserves things, and instead of making it break down into chaos, it has a tendency to preserve things. So that was, I think, a really good, for me, that resonated. That's if I was to use one word to describe pyramid energy, it would be entropic. Okay, and then my final thought on pyramids, having been in spiritual community and exposed to New Age stuff for quite a while, and with my business, lots of people all over the world have asked questions of me about pyramids and if they can do this and that and the other thing. And one thing I always emphasize is that the pyramid, it's an amplifier, it's a tool that can be used in many ways, but it's not our savior. It can be used as a tool, but we don't need to give our power away to the pyramid or anything else in this universe. We can do everything with or without a pyramid. We don't need a pyramid to do it, but it can be a wonderful tool to aid us in our evolution. So I think a final picture. This is just a picture of one of my super deluxe pyramids that I built quite a while ago. That's actually might be my personal one, and they're my website. And now I just want to open the floor to questions, if anyone has questions. And then after that, I can talk a little bit more about my products that I sell. Or actually, I'll talk a little bit now, actually. So David Wilcock, again, my favorite promoter, has really been talking a lot about the Russian pyramids, which have this steeper angle like this. And it's funny because after a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was like, I've had people interested in this style pyramid, which was also partly inspired by his book, which came out in 2011. But no one was interested enough to actually say, okay, I'm going to buy one. And then about 3 weeks ago, I started getting all these inquiries about the Russian style pyramid again. I was like, that's interesting. And then finally, some people started buying them, one of my deluxe models. But I was like, well, what's going on there? And then when Jane called me and asked, told me about the talks on the Russian pyramids, like, oh, that's what's going on. So I've been inspired, thank you again, Mr. Wilcock, to start making Russian-style pyramids that are in the 72-degree angle. There's no metal in this pyramid. It's held together with rope, which is actually simpler and easier than using dowels, and it's less work for me, so it's cheaper for you. And it folds up really easy. It folds up like an umbrella. You can just fold it up and take it wherever you want to go. It's really light. It's made out of cedar, and it's coated with all natural tung oil. So if you have it outside, it will handle the weather pretty well. And you can just take it wherever you want and then unfold it again, and the rope on the bottom keeps it to the right angles, and it's tied up at the top as well, so it's actually pretty strong. You'd have to do some major jungle gym climbing on it, I think, to break it. So that's one of the models that I've been inspired to build lately. I sell that one for $195. If people were hurting for money, I could also potentially sell a cheaper model that's not been sanded and coated with tung oil, and I could probably take off $50 or $60 off that price. And I also have other pyramids, like I'm going to be selling my tabletop pyramid that you can use experiments with. That's one of my prototypes. I intend to do one in the sharper angles as well. This is one of my fancier walled pyramids, and this has been coated with all natural shellac and sanded several times. This is more expensive. It has a stand that it sits on. There's a base that is at the king's chamber level, and you can also pull the base out if you have a bigger something that you want in there. And so this one is, if I recall, it's about $300. So that's a little bit more expensive. And then I also just, I guess it was yesterday or the day before, I decided to start making cardboard pyramids. And they, as far as I know from what I've read, they do work. So, and they just fold up like that. And I think, so I'm going to be selling in both the Giza dimensions and in the Nubian dimensions. And I think so. These will probably be like $18. It's really my work, not the materials that cost money for these. And then, yeah, so that's that. If anyone has questions, please ask questions. Oh, one more thing before I go to questions. After the questions, for those who are interested, also, for those who are interested, I'm going to be showing a 12-minute YouTube video. This guy in 2006 or 7, he's from Germany. He put out this video that was supposedly a free energy device that was using a pyramid, and I had it on my website. And then it kind of went defunct. The link that I had went defunct. I don't know when. And he kind of disappeared. And then I just discovered in 2000, I think he put it out in 2013, I just discovered it recently. He kind of came back in the picture again, and he put out a new video. The other one was in German, so that didn't help, but this one is in English, and it's a new version of his free energy device. He apologized because I guess he got duped by somebody buying his rights, and was, I think, promised that this person was going to get it out there to the world, and of course it didn't happen. So he created a new version that is not under the rights obligation. So he put this video out. It's actually over 3 hours of videos. He actually, and I have only watched the first, there's like 12 parts, and I've only watched the first couple parts, but it's 3 hours of videos where he is showing step by step how to make this thing. And like, you get the pipe, you cut it to this length, you get the wire, you coil this many coils around the pipe, or you know, I'll get to your question there. And so so the video that I'll show after the question and answer session is a condensation of the 3 hours going. It's a 12-minute video, and it cuts in parts through the production process, and then at the end of the video he actually shows the pyramid that he built running a 12-volt fan. It's on sawhorses. He goes around, and you can see all around the pyramid. He actually has a wire that he uses, a grounding wire, but then he pulls that out, and so there's no wires attached to this thing. And if you, as I understand it, if you see the videos, you'll know that there's no batteries operating this thing, because you get to see every part of this pyramid being built. So for those who want to stick around to see that after the question and answer. And then after that, for those who wish to participate, I'm going to be doing impromptu pyramid experiment with any guinea pigs who want to volunteer. So, all right then. So any questions for anyone? Yes?
How do you align a pyramid? Do you align the head?
The needle on the compass points to the magnetic North Pole, which is here in Yelm, is going to be a little less than 16 degrees east or to the right of the North Pole. So when you're using a compass to align the pyramid, you need to, I don't think I have my compass on me, it's up in there, but for a decent one, it'll have a dial on the compass,
and you can rotate the dial in increments of 1 degree, and there'll be a line that will show you so you can rotate it so that it's off of the magnetic north by the amount that you want. In this case, a little less than 16 degrees. I might show you. I might demonstrate that a little bit later on, like maybe during the experiment. So that's one method.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Jane, can we add space or an edge to
Wait,
that?
what?
Can we add some low?
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Put
thank
more
you.
light on?
Low house lights.
Low house lights.
There you go.
So yeah, the question that I neglected to answer there, the question was, do you line the face of the pyramid? Do you line the face of the pyramid to true north, or do you line the corners of the pyramid? Align the face of the pyramid. So you only have to align one side. So the true north-south, and it can be any side. It doesn't matter which one. It'll always make the pyramid align properly. There was something else I was going to say about that.
Where does the North Star fit here in this 60 degree, you know?
The North Star is probably the most accurate way, certainly one of the most accurate ways to align an object to true north. The North Star is called the North Star because it actually stays more or less in the northern part of the sky. It actually does. So the North Star is aligned with the rotation of the Earth. So if you imagine the Earth as a globe, and say its axis of rotation goes like this at an angle through the Earth, so the Earth is rotating around its axis. Well, that axis points up into the sky, and it points directly towards the North Star. So if you're on the Earth and the Earth is rotating, and you'll see this, the sun isn't, as we now know, now that we're out of the Dark Ages, the sun isn't moving around us. We're basically spinning as the sun moves. And as you watch the sun come up over the horizon, it's because we're on a point on the globe of the Earth rotating like this. The sun is still basically in the same spot, more or less. And we're just rotating around the horizon of the Earth is finally crossing the crest of where the sun reaches, and then you see the sunrise, and then you keep going, and it moves across the sky. So, and same with stars. The stars also follow a circular pattern around the sky. Well, the circular pattern of the movement of the stars gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until you get to the North Star, from our perspective on the Earth. So, the North Star is basically the one star in the sky that does not move around. It does not go in arcs across the sky. However, it does actually have a very small circle. And I want to say that it's like a 3/4 of a degree of arc. So at the worst case scenario, if you didn't know what time to align your pyramid using the North Star, you might be 3/4 of a degree off. But if you hit the right time, there would be 2 times during the day, or a 24-hour day, where it would be right in line with true north. So that would be the most accurate way, is to find out when the right times are, and then to align it with North Star. It's challenging though. One, it has to be outside. You're not going to do it in here, so it has to be an outdoor pyramid. And this North Star is pretty high up, so it's actually kind of hard to, like, I would use plumb bobs or whatever, but there might be other instruments that work better that I'm not familiar with, like sextants perhaps. But so that is another way of aligning a pyramid, but it's complicated, especially inside. Another method that could potentially work, depending on how accurate Google Earth is like I was actually looking on Google Earth at this building, and I was trying, I'm going to step back for a moment, because the method that I used to try to align this pyramid to true north was with my friend Joelle, who isn't here tonight, with her iPhone, because she had a digital compass on her iPhone, and it seemed to be giving more consistent readings than my compass that was kind of going all over the place in different places in this building. However, that is also not a guarantee of accuracy, though I'm hopeful that it was accurate, but that's a potential, but it can also be influenced by magnetic fields, because it operates on a magnetic field system as well. So the other method that could be used possibly is Google Earth, where you so I was looking on Google Earth at this building. I got a reading of this wall over here in relation to true north, and I got a certain angle, and then I actually brought my digital protractor, which is accurate to about 1/10 of a degree, and I was gonna check it to see if the angle matches up with what Joelle's cell phone said, but normally so my answer to maybe the easiest way would be to use a compass or the cell phone. I do both and compare, but a compass, you just make sure all your light circuits are off if you can, and you can still see, that is, and that you're not near metal and away from any electrical lines in the wall. Then hopefully you'll get, and if you do the declination properly, then hopefully you can get a pretty accurate reading with a decent compass.
How far off was the digital compass with your estimation or with your other?
With Google Earth,
Yeah. And your
I'll let you know. I'll let you know after the experiment later. I haven't had a chance to actually check it, but I'm very curious to find out. Yeah.
The energy from the pyramid, from the base, does it go right down into the earth?
I've heard that it does.
So it affects below.
Yes, I've
base
heard
of
that it
the
does.
pyramid.
David Wilcock has said on his tape that the steeper Russian type pyramids, the energy supposedly is more in the pyramid, and the shallower ones supposedly go more into the earth. I don't know for sure, but I think that all the pyramids do have that effect. I mean, he even was saying with the Russian pyramids, they did the experiments with the rocks on the ground, and they were affected by the pyramid as well as perhaps a combination with some energies in the earth. So I do believe that they do have an effect inside the earth too. Yes.
So is the King's Chamber the same proportion, a third from the base as it is in Giza?
Absolutely. Good question. Any size, any dimension pyramid, the geometric center is 1/3 up from the base. I've actually heard that the geometric center might be 1/4 up, but the King's Chamber, and for all intents and purposes, the geometric center of any shaped pyramid, no matter how steep or shallow, would be 1/3 up from the total height. I remember when I was first making pyramids, a lot of people seemed to think it was 2/3 up was the power center of the pyramid. And my answer to that is, well, I haven't done proper experiments to really know, so I don't know. However, it does seem that, there's lots of evidence that seems to point to the 1/3 up King's Chamber level as the most powerful center. I've heard some people claim that there may be actually chakras associated with the pyramid. So perhaps there's different energy levels of the pyramid as you go up the pyramid, but I don't know. Okay, over there.
Have you looked into the Queen's Chamber and how it relates to the energies?
The Queen's Chamber, I think, is closer to the 1/4 level, actually. And the best I can answer to that is what Rumpf has said on the pyramid CD. Again, this is my interpretation. I encourage you to hear it yourself to get the from the horse's mouth. But he referenced it as the energy will collect in the King's Chamber, and then it will actually overflow down into the Queen's Chamber, and he described it as love giving to love. That's I can give you. Yes.
Now you take a pyramid like this, and if I set it on a deck, will the nails in the deck interfere then when they're below it?
I don't think so. Again, it would be worthy of a pyramid experiment to find out for sure. My understanding is that as long as the metal is not inside the actual pyramid
So I
structure.
can just bring it up a ways too.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
You're talking about it can only handle so much. So could you make a recommendation how much water, if I wanted to purify my drinking water, how much water could I put in there and how long should I leave it in?
For that size pyramid?
That size, yes. Yeah, we want to buy one.
Okay, yes, and there's by the way, there is a sheet that I left on the front table there for people who are interested in buying this pyramid. My thinking is, if there's enough people that, I'll get to your question in a second, but my thinking is that if there's enough people that want to buy this style pyramid, which is one of my cheaper ones actually, I built this one, this is a new design that I just built a week ago, and I built it, obviously with the Russian pyramid dimensions in mind, but also to make it inexpensive as possible for people, and so, this is one of it. So if people are interested in this and there's enough people interested, then my plan is I'll just, make a whole batch of them and do that as quickly as I can so that people can have pyramids available. And I already forgot your question. So what was your question?
Water, how much,
Oh,
how
yeah.
often? How long?
So I don't know the real answer to that question. I from what I've read and the pyramid experiments from the books that I've read, they were kind of recommending like a quart, but I think that was a smaller size pyramid. So, and that would be for like 24 hours, I think. But I wouldn't be surprised if you could do much more on that. And again, worthy of experimentation. Do some experiments and see what you find out from your results.
How would you tell if water's been affected?
I would, again, strongly encourage you to listen to what David Wilcock talked about with the pyramids in Russia on his recent... Oh, you did? So do you... Okay, so he was talking about... What was your question again? I'm sorry.
How much water? Because you were saying
Yeah.
the milk, half a cup of milk
Oh,
was too
how
much
would
for
you...
drink.
Yeah, how would you know?
How would you know?
Yeah. So what I would do is, take some water amount that you think might work, try to energize it, and then do experiments like trying to sprout seeds with a control with regular water and pyramid water. That could be one way. And, another example, not that I want you to self-inflict yourself, but one of the experiments one of the guys did in the book is he actually did 2 cuts on his arm, and he used pyramid water for one of the cuts and regular water for the other, and there was a very quick healing of the pyramid cut versus the other one. So that's another, not that you need to do that, but that's another potential. There's lots of potentials with pyramid water. I mean, if you got a premature baby, give it a drop of water. I mean, that was one of the things that David talked about last night. That was like, wow, supposedly 1 milliliter drop of pyramid energized water from the pyramids in Russia, which are probably pretty darn powerful, but was enough to save these premature babies. I mean, that was mind-boggling.
Oh, so you could mix your water.
Probably.
You could do a quart and then mix it.
I've heard. I think he did talk about that. Yeah.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, what's the difference between the solid sides and the just the edges showing?
I don't know. Actually, it's another worthy experiment to do. By the way, I have sort of have excuses. I've been so busy with building pyramids and going to college and living life that that's one of my excuses for not doing pyramid experiments. Another excuse I have is I didn't really have a very good space to do pyramid experiments. But after Jane invited me to talk here, I was like, you know what? All right, I better get rid of the excuses and I better start doing some pyramid experiments. So I did finally set up a room in a friend's house and started doing some experiments and mixed results right now. I will say one with the half-cut apple was interesting. It's only been 6 days so far, so I can't really say if it's going to have an effect. But yeah, so Jane has kicked me in the butt to start doing pyramid experiences, and I hope for those of you who get pyramids will do some yourself. So.
You're our master builder. You and Paul are our master builders of the community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there's not many people out on the internet that even have a clue how to do this.
Yeah. I know.
So we're really appreciative of you.
Thank you.
When you did your samples, did you do it in that kind of a pyramid or the squared pyramid?
I was using the tabletop pyramid, a smaller pyramid for these experiments. I intend to do, until you took this pyramid from me, I was going to do experiments with that one. That's
Now you have to come to the theater to do it.
yeah. But yeah, I also want to do experiments with cardboard pyramids. I mean, so many people have had success with cardboard pyramids, and they're so cheap and easy to make that definitely can do that. But yeah, all kinds of experiments. And
J.C. Knight used the paper pyramids.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Can you make a bigger cardboard one that, I mean, there's not much space to use in there, just for the people, you know, the low end?
Yeah. This is
Not
like
that one, the tall one.
Yeah. These are like prototypes. I just made them like yesterday or the day before. With actually older cardboard that I had, and I just did it. And so I can make, yes, I do intend to make larger size pyramids in this angle, this dimension. I can even make larger size than this one in the Giza dimensions. I can make quite, I can use 4-foot wide sheets of cardboard to make pretty large size pyramids for those who want to pay a little more money for a larger size pyramid. That's not a big deal. So,
Can we have a break?
yeah, how many more, see a few more questions maybe, and then we'll have a break.
I wanted to know if those ropes get wet from the rain if you're out there, how do you keep, they don't, what's it made of so it doesn't stretch?
Okay, good question. So if this is going to be an outdoor pyramid, so I was looking into getting hemp rope, which is very resistant to rot and resistant to sunlight, which is, if I was to use a synthetic rope, it will, and it's outdoors, then it will eventually break down from the sun, which is not what you want, and better not to have synthetics, I think. Hemp is really expensive though, so for those who want to pay a little more with hemp, I can do that. I'm thinking I'll probably do, and I'm going to do a thicker rope on my next pyramids, but I'm thinking of doing, not sisal, it's another one. What is it? I'll think of it in a second, but it's a natural rope, and it has pretty good resistance to rot and resistance to sunlight. However, if it was outside, I would still, whether it's hemp or
Jute.
No, it's not jute. I think it starts. I'll think of it it'll pop in. But whatever the rope is that you have that I'll use, if it's outside, I would still recommend not only that you prop the bottom legs of the pyramid up. You can go to like Home Depot and you get these like little stone tiles. Paul might have lots of scraps that he would love to get rid of. I don't know, but you can go to Home Depot and for a few bucks get these stone tiles, that are thin and this size, and place them under the legs of the pyramid to keep them off of bare ground. If you're on a deck, you don't need to do that, but to keep them off of bare ground so they're not wicking up moisture and rotting the wood. And I would also do that with the rope too, just to be safe. I think the rope would be more protected a little bit, but if you want it to last longer, then I would, you could line it with a whole bunch of those tiles or anything that would keep it off of the ground so it's not wicking up moisture.
Do you make that one with the wood on the bottom?
I can. That would be more expensive and it will take me more time. But if you're doing that outside, I would still say that you would want to have that raised up off of the ground. Yeah. Any other questions?
Paul, how much are the concrete, the stone sculptures?
They're a little more expensive.
They're a little more expensive. They take quite a bit more time. Not just the stone cost, but the time it takes to cut it, because it's got to be cut precisely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but does your machine cut to like within 1/100 of a degree? Is that right?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but once those pieces are cut correctly, they'll be, and they're put together. It's amazing how well it goes together once it's cut correctly.
Wow. So it like leans and it just
yeah,
sets
they all
in.
fit together just beautifully, and then I glue the seams together with epoxy.
Wow.
So,
And those pyramids, they could probably, last 100 years outside? How long will they?
Well, that's granite, so it'll last 1,000 years if you
Jeez.
want it to. But the top itself is made out of white onyx, which is not as hard as the granite, so, but it'll still last. It'll last, you know, a good 100 years, I'm sure, but.
That's what we need in those traffic circles also. The
Yeah.
roundabouts
cool?
coming into the town. That'd be awesome with the light on.
Well, I'm working on some ideas as far as sandblasting images around the sides of the pyramid, just to give it a little more aesthetic look.
It's
Uh,
gorgeous.
But also with the lighting inside, I think that gives it a lot more dramatic effect.
Mm-hmm.
And they could be used to line driveways, or, you know, they could
Yeah.
be used for a lot of different things, so.
Put under beds to increase libido.
But I've yet to experiment with that, with those kind of pyramids. As far as doing, like Craig's been saying, experiments with, you know, whether it's fruit or seeds or water or whatever, so that might be kind of interesting to see how the stone works.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be cool, actually. We should have you make one in the steeper dimensions.
Yeah, I would like to do that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Back to the question about how much would that pyramid cost?
Ah, right. Kind of skipped that, didn't we?
Yeah, we're probably right around $600 or $700 probably, or something like that.
That doesn't sound bad.
Yeah.
It'll last a lifetime.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Yeah.
Great tombstone.
We're gonna
little
need
dog.
something that lasts another 100 years.
Go ahead.
There's a lady right here in front of me.
So Craig, is there any information available about how much time is too much time for a human head? Thinking of the mummifying issue there.
Yeah, good question. So what I would say is I would I would leave that to your knowingness on that. Yes, some, you know, like last night Wilcock was talking about people, the construction workers that were constructing one of these huge Russian pyramids. When they were putting up the apex part of the building, they were almost like going crazy because there was so much energy and they couldn't handle it. Use your knowingness. I mean, if you're feeling, you know, it's hard to say too, because like, you know, this pyramid to me feels like, well, it feels very powerful, and at times it can make me feel uncomfortable actually, and I think other people have had that experience too. However, I've also experienced that when I pushed through that comfort and allowed myself to still be there, it broke through some perhaps barriers, and I think other people as well have that experience. So I can't really say for you, like for anyone, how long you should or should not be in there. Go ahead. What?
I also wondered about location, thinking about grounding and frequency on the earth versus in a building. I had the experience of having on the second floor of my house back in '90 a pyramid that had the copper capstone on it, and if I had, which was above the living room below, and I had fruit dehydrate in the bowls below it. I also had the experience of doing C&E under it and getting out of my body, which sort of fit with Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like if it draws, it's inclined to draw any energy up from the earth, that would be interesting to know about.
Mm-hmm.
So have you noticed in a house versus outside?
Okay. I have not, and maybe there is a difference. I'm not sure. My current theory at this time is that I don't know that it so much matters. Like, you know, I've had customers ask me, well, can it be on a second, like in a second story bedroom, my pyramid, or, you know, does it need to be on the earth and that kind of thing? And I'm pretty confident it does not need to be on the earth to be effective. Because, and it makes sense if it's actually harnessing the centripetal force of the earth. You could be in a 1,000-foot tall skyscraper, you're still going to be having the effects of the centripetal rotation of the earth no matter where you are on the planet. So, so I would guess that, I mean, I'm pretty confident that you don't need to have the pyramid grounded on the earth. Whether that might enhance it, maybe, I'm not sure. I did hear that, I've read that with the Great Pyramid, and probably some of the other pyramids in Egypt, that there were waterways under the pyramid itself. And something to do with the energy of the moving water actually enhanced the energy of the pyramid somehow. So, yeah, maybe there is something to grounding it, but it's not, I'm pretty confident it's not required to. Yes, in the back?
Craig, are you familiar with this fellow down in Oregon who has built a house, and he's actually, it's on a platform, it's on a lake, he's on the internet. If you haven't looked into that, you might want to. That might be an interesting place to go and visit.
It's a pyramid house?
Yes.
Wow. I'd be interested in knowing more information about that.
He even got in trouble, he, for some reason, the pyramid, he didn't have a lot of water near his house, and all of a sudden, he became surrounded by a moat. He's on an island now because all the water came all around him. It drew the water from the community. Really true.
Oops.
So now he's on an island.
All right, interesting.
Craig?
Yeah.
Now, speaking of water, in the last 2 months, we have had Cindy McKenna here talking about structured water. And I noticed that there is something common between the structured water and the pyramids. And that is the vortex, the energy vortex that's the lady is signaling down here in front. I'm waving her hand around.
Yeah. You know, I would love to do pyramid experiments involving what Michael Kaku, I don't know if I got the right name, the guy in Japan who has done, Michio Kaku, thank you, in Japan, who's done the...
No, Michio Kaku is American.
Is he?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Columbia University.
Emoto.
Oh, Emoto.
Right.
Yeah. And he is in Japan, right? I got that right? Okay.
Yeah, we think he passed on.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to continue his work and to see if pyramids can have some sort of effect with what he does there. Any other questions over there?
What was the name of the book that in 2011 that David Wilcock wrote that you spoke about? You mentioned it very briefly.
Yes. So David Wilcock's book that doubled my business overnight in 2011, the name of it is called The Source Field Investigations. Very, very out of the box. You'll be going down a rabbit hole with that book. Yes?
I was wondering about your reinforced ones there, because wouldn't that, why doesn't that affect the energy that's in there, since you've got extra shapes all the way around, even though they are upside down pyramid shapes?
So your question is, why don't the cross beams in that model of pyramid affect the energy? Is that your question?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
I think it does. I think it enhances the energy.
Oh, it does?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure on that one either, but...
There are a lot of triads
yeah.
the other way too, so.
Yeah. I kind of imagine it sort of like that satellite dish analogy I was using, where you have this dish that's made of a grate, and I think sometimes they are triangular grate, but catching that energy. I'm not sure. I saw another hand raised. Yes, great.
Do you sell different heights of this pyramid for shorter people?
Thank you. Good question. So yes, this one is actually, well, it's pretty big, and it fits here in the triad, but for people who have 8-foot high ceilings, this 9-foot tall pyramid will not fit. So yes, I will be selling different varieties. On the sign-up sheet there for people who want to buy one, there's 3 different sizes you can check a box by. For 8-foot ceiling, if it's inside and you're having an 8-foot ceiling, or 9-foot ceiling, or a 10-foot ceiling. If you have a 10-foot ceiling, you can do that one. And you need about almost a foot less than the height of your ceiling, because the actual poles are when you fold it up, it's going to go up, and you don't want it to poke a hole through your roof. So you need like an extra foot. Anybody else have questions? Cool. Well, how about we have a little break, and then for those who want to, we can show the free energy video, free pyramid energy. And then for those who are brave, we can do a little pyramid experiment. Thank you.